What an eventful Elimination Chamber we have just come off of 2022 in Saudi Arabia in Jeddah. Well, let's go through some of the plays very quickly. Brock Lesnar is your brand new WWE Champion, winning the Elimination Chamber match. Bobby Lashley suffers a concussion, is taken out of the chamber, not even entering in the match properly. We've got champion versus champion at WrestleMania set with Brock versus Roman. Do any other wrestlers matter? We'll probably discuss that as well on our show today. We've got the Raw Women's Championship decided now. Bianca Belair winning the Women's Elimination Chamber match. We'll be taking on Becky Lynch. Ronda Rousey can kick ass with one hand, well, by her side, really. Don't know what it was tied up, but still, she did a pretty good job indeed in that match. And of course, also throughout the show, we've seen Lita make a return as well. And tag team wrestling, does that matter either? We're going to find out that and much more. We're not going to even get into an intro for this one. I'm going to straight off call my guest in today. He is the one, the only George from Jonesy Chats Wrestling in-house. George, how are you doing coming off Elimination Chamber?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me again on your fantastic channel. It's great to be here. We're definitely on the road to WrestleMania now, aren't we?
We certainly are. And like I said, there's so much to talk about that's come off of this show. And honestly, I can't wait to get your thoughts about everything going on in this show. And I can't wait for everyone that's watching. If you want to get involved in the comments below as well, feel free to drop a comment. I'm happy to discuss whatever goes on throughout this live stream. But first and foremost, I would say that this is a show with some ups and downs. Would you agree with that? And if so, what were a couple of your main ups before we go into it? And what were your couple of main downs? And we'll go into great detail when we go through the match by match.
I think in terms of ups, I think the right people won, sort of particularly in the Bianca Belair match. I think she had to win, so that kind of makes sense to me. I thought the Ronda Rousey match was decent. I thought Drew had a decent match. It's good to see Drew back. Sort of first match since the Royal Rumble, so it's great to see him back. In terms of downs, the fact you're sort of submitting your whole men's upper division for Brock Lesnar, I think that's sort of Brock's not going to be there after WrestleMania, and that's a concern for me. Like, you've made AJ Styles, Seth Rollins, among others look just average, which it's very dangerous to do, but a small criticism. But the event kind of did what it needed to do. It wasn't really outstanding, but it was okay, really, for me.
Yeah, I would agree with those points there. I mean, like you said, the right people won the matches, in my personal opinion, as well. But like you say, people are being sacrificed here. You know, talking the likes of Seth Rollins, Riddle, and that. Like, you know, they come in and they just get destroyed by Brock Lesnar. What about their storylines going into WrestleMania? Does it matter? Literally, Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, this build to WrestleMania has gone through the Universal Championship, the WWE Championship, the Royal Rumble, and the Elimination Chamber, something that could have benefited somewhere else amongst the card. These are the two biggest names already. Did we really need all of this to build this match, or does it put them that high on a pedestal that really this does feel like a big WrestleMania, big time deal? And when it comes to the show itself, other people, when they get a chance to shine on the rest of the card, will look good as well.
I think it's a huge match. I just think they didn't really need this. There's a lot of bells and whistles already added. You've obviously had the drama with Paul Heyman that was obviously going to happen, stuff like that. For me, I think Brock having the title was just kind of needless. It doesn't really add anything. This is a title where you've gone with Big E at the start of the year. You give it to Bobby for no reason, kind of off Brock. It's gone Big E, Bobby, then and then obviously now back to Brock. It's just kind of a bit of a mess, really. I'm not really a fan of that unless they're going to unify the titles. I heard on the Dirty Sheets podcast today, I'll quote them, that apparently they're on about 2 belts. Like, whoever wins at WrestleMania is going to have 2 belts. They're not going to unify the brand, which to me, having Roman with 2 belts, I think it's an overkill. Like, Roman's unstoppable. He's never going to lose. And him having both world titles, what does that do for the rest of your roster?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, you can make that argument. I would agree. Champion versus champion, it will be not necessarily unifying the belts, but it will be to the point, like you said, they'll be on both shows. So you imagine that's going to be Roman at this stage here that will be on Raw and SmackDown. Like you say, it's overexposure, but he is the biggest thing WWE have got. He's probably the biggest draw. It will probably keep both TV networks happy. You know, we get these matches that maybe we thought we wouldn't see with Roman being on Raw if that's the situation. So there are some pluses from it, but it'll have to see how it's going to play out. But one of the other negatives as well from this show, which Silk has brought in the comments already, yes, the Elimination Chamber got the Royal Rumble 1995 with the shortest chamber matches ever. 16 minutes long, both matches were. And of course, the literal gaps between the pods of being entered into the chamber were 2 minutes each rather than regular 4 or 5 minutes that we're used to. Usually these chamber matches go 30 to 35 minutes. These were a lot shorter. And you could turn around and say that in a way, it makes it kind of more exciting, but there isn't really that time for those characters, those stories to develop and get over. Would you argue that?
Yeah, I agree. I think they were so rushed, like throughout this sort of both matches. They seem to be very rushing through, and stuff gets lost. Unfortunately, when you rush, mistakes happen, and nothing really seems to sort of settle with things. It doesn't have time for a storyline to build. This should be your vehicle to build matches for WrestleMania, other than the main matches we know already. And I just don't think they did that. Unfortunately, this is the last premium pay per view before WrestleMania. I would have thought we would have got something out of both matches really for WrestleMania, besides the obvious ones we know we're going to get the winners against the champions.
Absolutely, indeed. There. One other comment that's gone flying in as well. Then, just at this particular moment, there were 6 minutes of wrestling in the first 40 minutes of the show, and imagine they scrapped a match. Yeah, absolutely. And just one other small note, just before we actually kick in and go from the start of the show, where was Mansoor on this show? He wasn't anywhere.
No, he wasn't. They ran out of time for everything. Like, if he was there, I guess it's probably a good thing that he wasn't there to come back for a push for 2 weeks, and then he's not on TV again for months. Yeah, he was missing though, which was a shame.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's the local hero, isn't it? So even on the kickoff would have been fun to have seen him. But let's go into the show. And I mentioned the kickoff there. And of course, the first result that we had on this show was Rey Mysterio defeating The Miz. Now, this was an interesting match between these two because, of course, Rey is the babyface and Miz is the heel. And Dominic was kind of assisting Rey throughout this match where he could, throwing The Miz back into the ring. It kind of was a reverse dynamic, which was a bit interesting. As we got towards the end of the match, The Miz was outside the ring, grabbed himself a steel chair, and of course with Rey being with the referee, Dominic manages to get the chair off of The Miz, but The Miz decides to actually kick the steel steps, trying to get Dominic thrown out. He was successful in doing so because he wasn't hit by the chair. Very Eddie Guerrero-like. The Miz goes back into the ring, looks like he's going to try and hit the skull-crushing finale on Rey Mysterio, and Rey Mysterio counters it into sort of a front roll-up for the pinfall victory. Just a bit of aftermath as well after this match. The Miz was not happy to settle with that, decides to try and attack both Mysterios. Does not get anywhere from that either. He finds himself being hit by 619s and also more Eddie Guerrero tributes with frog smashes off the top rope from both Dom and Rey. Now, this for me, I thought was standard. Yes, I made the joke before. This was very 2011, seeing Rey and Miz compete on a card here, but it was the right match for the kickoff, in my personal opinion. I thought the match was standard. It was okay. Did the job that it needed to do.
Yeah, I really liked it. I thought the crowd were really like a key part of this match. This is the awesome chance. I think that made the match seem a lot bigger than it was, but I enjoyed it. It kind of makes sense. I think the whole thing with Rey and Dom, it's a fun throwback. And I think this just did what it needs to do. Really, I think it was a good opener for me.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a solid opener. There's probably not too much to it, but I suppose the question I was coming out of this after the match was that, well, surely The Miz has probably got a direction going to WrestleMania. Surely he needs a tag team partner to even up the odds, because as being asked here, why are Rey and Dom working the heel angle for this match, essentially making a handicap match? Pretty much a good point there, essentially what it was. Clearly, it's to bring in a tag team partner. And, well, let's be fair, I didn't need to ask you that question because Miz on the main show has a backstage interview and he says he needs a partner, someone that's like an international, well-known superstar to come in and fill that void. And, of course, I'm sure they're not talking about John Morrison, who would have been a ready-made tag team partner that they released last year. Cody Rhodes has been teased as well to come back to WWE. Wouldn't that be the most WWE thing in the world to bring Cody in as a heel and a part as a tag team with The Miz at WrestleMania? No, I don't think it's going to be either of those. In fact, PW Insider have reported something different. And George, I'm going to let you do the honors. And if people don't want to know, just put your fingers in your ears for the next couple of minutes.
The man that was at WrestleMania last year in a heel capacity is now going to be a babyface. Logan Paul is going to be the Miz's partner, and this will be a tag match at WrestleMania. I think, okay, it brings exposure to WWE. They want celebs. They want this to be a huge show. I would like to see somebody else get the chance to be Miz's partner, if I'm being honest. I'm glad they've not gone to Cody Rhodes. That's a relief to me because that would be wasteful. It doesn't really do anything for me. Logan Paul, at least they've realised the mistakes from last year. He's going to be good as a heel. Like, I think the hatred he'll get from the crowd will be excellent to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, you say there, Logan Paul was brought in a very bizarre capacity. He was booed last year. He's been brought back to WWE throughout the year as well. A couple of occasions he's been booed. He has played that heel side more. He would fit, and I'm sure he had a segment with The Miz as well earlier this year. So there is actually some continuity with the storytelling. So it could kind of make sense to do that. And if they do that at WrestleMania, I think, like you say, eyes will be on the prize of this because you've got the cover star of WWE 2K22 involved there. You'll have the celebrity in Logan Paul. Miss from Marine 6, maybe not, but still, you've got something there that I think people would be attracted to with that match. So certainly this could be interesting. But yeah, I'm relieved it's not Cody either. I think there's an outside bet, although it probably would be too soon to put him on a WrestleMania. I probably wouldn't have mind seeing Grayson Waller in that sort of position because he's very unlikable guy, but probably it's a bit too soon for someone like him.
I love that. I love that rule. That you're throwing them ideas out, Steve. This is why you need to be a booker. This is that's a great idea. That's a new talent that could get the rub. But no, for me, this is great. But for me, this is just a placeholder. Really, we really need to get to that Rey Mysterio Dominic feud later this year at some point. Because for me, I was waiting for Dominic to punt kick Rey yesterday. That's what I was kind of waiting for. But I think it's overdue. But let's let him do this thing at Mania. It makes sense with Rey being on the cover. He's got to get some sort of match at WrestleMania, as you said. So yeah, for me, I think it's a sensible match. Gives the Miz something to do. I'm glad that they're going to have a place on the card at least.
Yeah, absolutely, indeed. I think that's the best way there to leave that on. And we'll go on to the main show then, obviously, with the video package there, which was basically just saying that they were in Saudi Arabia for this show. It's the Elimination Chamber, the big matches they've got. I think it was a standard video package, perhaps not too much to scream about, but certainly I was looking forward to this show going into it. I thought that the video package did, again, essentially what it needed to do. A lot of what we're going to say probably on this video.
Yeah, definitely. I think it just kind of hypes up the event and it gets you ready and stuff. But what I would say is the pyro to start the show. Wow, that was a big pyro, wasn't it? It was nice to see for once.
It was indeed. It was a very big pyro to see. And just before we do, I was going to save this comment for the actual women's match itself, but Supersonic has put in a number of minutes ago. I don't want to actually leave it too long. But he said the chamber matches is something else, like the women's chamber has done some bizarre choice of clothes. Just a note on that then, Supersonic. Of course, they do have to wear different outfits, sadly, when they're in Saudi Arabia. But I thought that it was actually creative. I thought that actually the choice of clothes of how they have to dress for this, I thought they actually did a good job of it, actually, rather than doing the traditional, these suit things with these big baggy t-shirts. I thought that actually a lot of the women got a chance to shine with how their outfits looked.
Yeah, I think they flattered them. I think it looked much better than other years. Like I think even sort of they were clever about things as well, like jumping ahead a bit, like the outfit Ronda Rousey wore with a gown and stuff like that. The karate, like Gi, I think Gi is called. But yeah, I think it was clever. They were far more appropriately dressed this time, which made it a bit more easy to do stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we totally agree with that. And we do have one more comment here from Supersonic X as well, saying, I'm assuming it's to do with Logan Paul. It's the same guy who filmed the infamous Forest, 4 years ago. Have someone like Grayson Waller to be Mrs. Partner. Also, John Morrison is back in AAA as Johnny Superstar. Was not aware of that information that last bit there. Thank you, Supersonic, for that bit of info. But of course, we have to go back then. As we said, we had 6 minutes of wrestling in the first 40 minutes of the show, as Silk brought up for us not so long ago. And of course, we had basically the first 30 minutes of show devoted to Roman Reigns and Goldberg. We had a fantastic video package, don't get me wrong. It was very well put together, showed out the importance of the storyline trying to put into this match. But we always knew with that and the entrances that this was never going to be a long match. I think this lasted, like we said, 6 minutes here. Roman Reigns, I think, looked fairly dominant. Goldberg sold a lot more than what he did in other matches. But he did manage to get a couple of spears in, although the attempt of the jackhammer did foul on him. And of course, he did fall victim to the guillotine in the end and passing out for Roman Reigns to retain the Universal Championship. Not quite Goldberging a Goldberg, but certainly a quick match nonetheless here. Roman Reigns moving on to WrestleMania 13 as your Universal Champion and remaining head of the table and your Tribal Chief. What were your thoughts of these 6 minutes?
Yeah, I thought it was okay. It did what it needed to do. It was a typical Goldberg match that just was smash and grab, but I really kind of enjoyed it. I thought the Uranagi that Roman did was excellent.
Yes.
And I think even though they botched the finish, like with the whole rope break, I thought it was a really good sort of opener. It did what it needed to do. Roman winning, the right person won. And yeah, interested to see if this is Goldberg's last match, obviously, because apparently his contract's up. So I'll be interested to see if they renew, like particularly if they're back in Saudi at some point in the future.
Absolutely, no, I'd have to agree with that. And I asked this question to Silk the other day when he was here for the predictions show. Roman was the right choice if there was going to be a last match.
Yeah, agreed. I'm glad that they didn't switch the belt off Roman for like 2 or 3 nights or something randomly. I'm just so glad they didn't do it. But yeah, this was an okay match. It wasn't offensive. It was really, really good. And kind of, they got the time they needed. And it was just perfect for the opener, really.
Absolutely. You don't want to overexpose the match either doing a 20-minute match. It's not the sort of thing for Goldberg style. So for me, this certainly fit the mold. But going then into the women's elimination chamber match, then, of course, we had the likes of Bianca Belair, Alexa Bliss, Rhea Ripley, Nikki ASH, Liv Morgan, and Doudrop all involved in this match. So one other little bit of a nitpick I'll have here, because you have the superstars that come out that go into the pods, right? And usually it's the first 4 superstars that come out, go into the pods, then it's the last 2 that start in the match. Both times on this show, the first 3 superstars went into the pod. Then we got 1 and 2. And then we got, I suppose, I don't know if this is WWE's thing of the star or the attraction of the match. Then that last person comes out and goes into the pod. It was Alexa Bliss for the women. It was Brock for the men. It was very interesting the way that they did that dynamic. A bit confusing to someone that's kind of used to a certain way of them doing the chamber. Did that little nugget sort of like make you feel a little bit weird when starting these matches, starting and going, hang on, that person's meant to be starting instead of this person?
I thought they were going to do something like a coin toss or something because it was so random that they had 3 people in the ring at one point. But yeah, it was a bit unusual. I think it was very hard to tell who was going to kind of be this opening the match, as you said. But for me, this wasn't any sort of familiarity to what we saw in other chambers, like at all. This chamber to me looked like even the structure of it. It looked like it looked kind of weak. I've got to be honest with you.
Yeah, it was. I have to agree with that, didn't it? Thank you, Silk, for your comment there, by the way. But I mean, the thing is, it was very bizarre the way they sort of did that way. But what I will say is there's a couple of things I do like about it as well. But there's a few things I did like about the entrance, particularly I liked Rhea Ripley's entrance. I thought the way that she actually engaged in the camera and said, "Let's do this," and the way that she sort of she looked pretty badass. She was happy to be in the chamber. She was doing some some chin ups in there as well. She looked ready for that chamber match, and I feel Rhea Ripley is really turning a corner now, getting back to the Rhea Ripley we knew in NXT. And one other little thing I will just say I did like about the entrance is, although I'm nitpicking Alexa Bliss the way she entered in, I do like the fact that swing was in the pod. I thought that was just, I know because at the moment a lot of people say we don't like that character. I still think we've got a transition from one character to another. She's not quite there yet. But what I'm saying is it just was something a bit different and was a nice touch.
Yeah, I agree. I think I was glad like she came out that Lily. That was the first positive. Credits to WWE. They're finally learning. But the swim was certainly different. I thought it was quite creative. Another nice thing I thought was quite interesting is every time somebody came out, they would go past the people that's already in the pod and start like sort of taunting them, which was kind of different. For me, it was okay. I thought it was that part and stuff of it was okay. I just think it's sort of it was an interesting way of just seeing them taunting. I don't know if that's a new thing. Like a lot of them don't have heat with each other, so it kind of was a bit weird. But yeah, no, I think it's just kind of it was creative them putting a swing there. That's for sure.
Absolutely, indeed. Well, we'll just go through a quick bit of the details of the match then, and we'll get your thoughts on everything there. Of course, we're the ones starting off then. The match were Liv Morgan and Nikki ASH. We've already mentioned that, of course, it's every 2 minutes people were coming in, so there wasn't really a lot of time with people in the match and not a lot of time to get a lot of structure and storyline detail. But Doudrop was third into the match. We got Rhea Ripley fourth into the match. I believe during this point was when we got our first elimination. We had Nikki ASH trying to be a superhero, not using that cape to fly up the cage. She was trying to climb up it, but still didn't exactly work. She was sort of thrown off by Rhea Ripley, then hit by the Riptide for the pinfall. We saw Liv Morgan as well, actually, hitting what was like a sunset flip while Doudrop was on the sort of second rope, holding onto the top of the pod, and power bombed off for a pinfall as well. We got Alexa Bliss into the match there as entrant number 5, and as we knew before going in, Bianca Belair was the one that was going to be coming in last as she won the gauntlet on Raw. Going in then into that final play then of the final 4, which I thought was pretty cool, the way it was sort of structured around the match. Liv Morgan was next eliminated by Alexa Bliss with a Twisted Bliss. Alexa was massively over, by the way, with that crowd in Jeddah. We then got where it was Rhea Ripley that was eliminated with a KOD from Bianca Belair, and eventually, after a back and forth where it could have gone either way, but I think a lot of people knew it was safe here. Bianca was winning, another KOD to pick up the victory over Alexa Bliss. So that's pretty much the details you need from the match. But George, you were telling me something off air, and I'd like to get a little bit more detail of it on now. We're on air. You were talking about how there probably could have been more use of the chamber. This felt a bit more like a steel cage match than an elimination chamber match, in your opinion.
Yeah, for me, I think that sort of the chamber had no real purpose other than containing people. There was the odd bump, but for me, they just didn't really use it to its advantage. Like I know that they had to use the chamber later on in the night. I get that for Brock's sort of massacre, but for me, I just felt it felt so tame. I think like sort of there was a couple of odd moments that were kind of cool, but there was nothing really that made me think this is an elimination chamber compared to what we've seen in years past.
Absolutely, I would agree. This is definitely a safer elimination chamber match than what we've seen previously. But I would say that I think my main issue with with this match was just that it was rushed. I mean, if you had time to really get much out, maybe we could have built up to big spots. Because obviously, this is an opinion to give as well. When we've seen these sort of previous elimination chamber matches of like 20, 25 minutes, you build up to these big spots and you go, whoa, if they just sort of gone flying off the top of the chamber for no apparent reason, whatever, that hadn't been built up to, it was rushed, would it have the same impact for you?
Probably not, but then I think the thing is, like, when somebody gets eliminated, you want that bump to be a big bump, like it's
Yeah.
like, oh my god moment. But for me, I just think it was okay. I think the coming out of it, what I thought was quite interesting is the only thing that looked like any sort of feud was Rhea Ripley, Nikki Ash. That was the only sort of storyline that seemed to be out throughout the match, really, to me. Which I just think it was okay. But once again, apart from the winner winning the match, there's nothing coming out of this for WrestleMania. I don't think that was obvious to me. It's not like you got somebody get eliminated by a sneaky tactic, which will lead to a match down the line. But it was rushed. The right person won. The moonsault that Bianca Belair did was good. That was a fantastic moment of the match. But for me, it wasn't memorable. It was just okay, really. It wasn't something that I'd have to see again.
No, I think that's a fair argument. No, it's not one I'd rush back and see. I mean, obviously, watching the 2018 Elimination Chamber match that the women did, the first ever one, I thought was still probably the best one. The tag team one they did as well, I thought was really, really good to crown the first women's tag team champions. So I don't think this is up there with the best of them, if I'm being brutally honest. But I do think that they had potential to make this the best one. Clearly, a lot of star power in that match. I was hoping it would build for Liv Morgan and Alexa Bliss going into WrestleMania. I thought that would have been a fun match to see. But one thing I will say coming out of it, you mentioned Lily earlier on. I wanted to bring this up in the stream here today. Now, obviously, on Raw, the last time that Bliss saw this psychiatrist, he said to her, like, you have that doll, and you'll be fine. And Alexa Bliss kind of more or less said that she didn't need it. She was fine. She was cured. She was over it. Like you say, she didn't bring Lily here, and she's lost. Is this going to lead back to where she's going to start thinking she needs Lily? Is she going to go back to the psychiatrist? Where does Alexa Bliss go from here? I feel that this story, this transition of character, isn't quite finished yet.
I agree. I think I still have fears that the doll's going to come back. I'm wondering if there was some sort of law that prevented her using the doll. I'm not, and that sounds crazy, but obviously Saudi Arabia, they've got certain laws and stuff. But for me, she's not going to be the goddess yet, which is what we wanted to see. But she looked strong in this match. Getting to the final two was a big statement. Getting rid of Liv Morgan was a huge sort of accolade as well. But for me, the storyline isn't finished. I just hope it's not as crazy as last year, where it sort of halted her progression, so to speak.
I would have to 100% agree with that and hope it's going to go to a good direction, especially now going into WrestleMania. But we'll move on things a little bit then, and we'll talk about the third match. Then we had Naomi and Ronda Rousey, who had one arm, like I say, to the side, meant to be tied behind her back, against Sonya Deville, who revealed that her arm is fine, and Charlotte Flair as well. And I mean, this match was more, for me, WWE storyline. I mean, these matches aren't always seen as the best standout. It does limit a performer when they can't use both arms. But of course, I suppose this is a way you could try and get the heel heat. But of course, Ronda Rousey was easy to overcome it in the end, put her sort of, deadly arm submission hold on Sonya Deville. And Charlotte Flair looked like she could have come and made the save, but thought she better fight another day, which of course led then to the babyfaces picking up the victory. What were your thoughts with this match?
I liked it. I thought it was okay. I think it did what it needed to do. Ronda Rousey looked at $1 million. She had such an offense in this match as well. For me, it was okay. And it just kind of fills a spot really on the card. I think what I liked about it as well is the fact you didn't have too much interaction from Charlotte and Ronda. You've saved that for WrestleMania, which is really sensible, I think, from a business point of view.
Absolutely. I mean, they not to quote that other company, by the way, but they did a 6-man tag not long ago with CM Punk and a bit of Sting and Darby Allin against FTR and MJF, and it was a long match. And with the storyline of Punk and MJF, they purposely didn't touch the whole match. It was like a 30-minute match. Neither of them interacted once. So it was like, it's a good thing to sort of do that sort of stuff if you can try and not put too much emphasis, especially with Ronda being on top of Charlotte Flair in this match. I think that was the key part here. Charlotte saying, no, do you know what? If I'm going to go in here and I'm going to get beaten, it's better I do it another time. So I think that's probably the best aspect that they went and did with this. But like you say, storyline purposes, I think it did what it needed to do. I said we'd say that a lot on this stream. And yeah, I think this match was perfectly fine. We've got a comment coming in from Silk. It says, does Ronda dominating and winning with one arm make the rest of the division look weak compared to her? So we talked about Brock and Roman and the rest of the division looking weak. Does this do the same here, or is it fine that it's not GM and Sonya Deville that's actually taking the beat down here?
I think it's fine as Sonya Deville. I get if Ronda Rousey's doing that to everybody, say she does that to Sasha Banks and Bayley when she comes back and on others, then yes, it wouldn't be too good. But in this storyline where Sonya Deville was injured previously and she's obviously selling an injury to a certain point, that wasn't really injury as such. It's fine. For me, I think it just did what it needed to do. Ronda Rousey kind of did say that she'd win with one arm tied behind her back. Her coming into this pay-per-view and losing on her first match back, other than the Royal Rumble, would be a big mistake. I've got to say another thing as well, Steve. I think Naomi was fantastic in this match. Like I've never really kind of rated her, but I thought for me that she was the standout. Really, but she was absolutely fantastic. I thought she was so good. She should
Yeah,
be much pushed up the card.
Yeah, do you know what? I hope so because she's been doing some great stuff as of late. And no, I totally agree. Looked like an absolute star out there during the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. And before we move on to the next match, got a couple of comments that have come in. Silk saying, anyone else feel Charlotte Satire looked like an old cartoon prospector's outfit that was missing the flap at the back there. Funny stuff indeed, Silk there. And Super Sun X also saying Brock Lesnar going to the chamber is very funny. Brock in the chamber looking for a pod to fit in, and Riddle's reaction is priceless. We will be talking more about that later. But yeah, I did love their interaction before the match started. It was definitely one thing I was looking forward to talking about. And one thing I'm looking forward to talking about, and probably not anyone else is looking forward to listening about, is Drew McIntyre versus Madcat Moss, mainly because this was pretty much a handicap match as well. Of course, it was a falls count anywhere stipulation. Happy Corbin getting involved in quite a number of this match, but at some point I felt he needed to be because, well, it was meant to be an Alabama Slam or a reverse Alabama Slam on Madcat Moss, and well, he tucked his head down and he landed on top of his head. There was one camera angle which looked absolutely, it made me cringe. And Madcat Moss, the fact that he's okay, was able to continue on. This could have been one of the worst bumps in wrestling history had that he'd not have got up again. And very lucky that he was fine. But yeah, personally for me, this was a scary moment.
Yeah, it was really, really bad. I think credit to Madcap Moss for finishing the match. You never want to see wrestlers land on the head, but yeah, it was really, really scary. Particularly when you look at stuff like we've had with other wrestlers that land on the head and stuff. It was just a really scary moment. But I'm glad apparently that he's okay. I've heard apparently today that he's okay, but we'll see. Hopefully he is.
Yeah, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Yeah. And like you say, Matt was able to finish the match. Happy Corbin getting himself a bit more involved in, I think, in places just to give Madcap a couple of seconds to get himself back together after that. So probably was well done. It was done that way. But to be fair, as we got towards the end of the match, Happy Corbin looking to get into the ring. The sword was swung. My goodness. Thank goodness that wasn't a botch. That could have been a nightmare, couldn't it? And eventually then we see, of course, Drew with the sword in hand, hitting the Claymore Madcap Moss to get the 1, 2, 3. And of course, they are building, it looks like now, Drew McIntyre to Happy Corbin at WrestleMania. My first thought process with this was a question I was going to ask you whilst I was watching the match, but I think it needs to be edited now that the match is finished, was the fact that could it have been that they were looking to do Madcap Moss against Drew again because they want to protect Happy Corbin's his undefeated streak as Happy Corbin? But I think that's what they want to do, but they want to do it at WrestleMania, Drew versus Happy Corbin. What are your thoughts if that match is going to go down?
Yeah, I think you're on the money there. I think definitely Madcap Moss is the placeholder in this, but no, you are going to get Drew McIntyre and Happy Corbin at WrestleMania. It'll be okay. Drew's fallen so far down the card, which is a real shame. But I've got to put it out there that I think Madcap Moss is such a good worker. He's another one that's got a really silly gimmick that's no fault of his own. That if this guy had if he had a serious gimmick, he could be really up there, the United States champion, that type of level. Because I think he's really good. Every time I've seen him, I've been impressed by his work.
I would agree. And do you know what? To be fair, I mean, you can't say WWE not. Obviously, we agree we don't like the gimmick and we don't think it's going to go anywhere long term, that gimmick. But you can't say WWE are not trying with this guy. He's getting a lot of opportunities. Had 2 pay-per-view matches against a former WWE, 2-time WWE champion now. He lamented AJ Styles from the Royal Rumble. They are trying with Madcap.
They are trying. It's this silly gimmick. So you got Riddle with a silly gimmick as well. It's just the problem with this is if he was a serious wrestler, obviously when he was Riddick Moss in Raw Underground and stuff, he had a bit more of a Ken Shamrock about him, a bit more Steve Blackman around him. He was that kind of wrestler. But for me, silly gimmick is not his fault. He's a great worker. I just hope he gets a push. What I would say for this, I think this match was really, really good. It really kind of impressed me. I didn't think it would. I thought it was good apart from the bump. My only real complaint was the finish with the sword was awful. Like you got him there doing the Claymore kick with the sword. That looked absolutely stupid. I just think it just sort of they need to get a sword that he can use, like sort of because obviously his whole thing at the moment. Drew's whole thing is the sword.
I just feel it's a bit cartoony, and that's the thing.
Cartoony,
it's for the younger audience, isn't it? It's not. I don't feel it's for our demographic. And I mean, like, yeah, I mean, a sword in Saudi just doesn't sound like a good idea for me in general, really. But you know, he just, I don't know.
Well said.
Yeah, it is what it is. But no, like you said, the match was fine itself. But yeah, we'll move on anyway. But R.I.P. Moss has been said there after the big bump, and Silk also says don't understand why they show so many replays uncalled for. Yeah, it was probably uncalled for, really, because they kind of made it feel like it was just, well, I mean, if it's not ballet, end of the day, accidents happen. We've seen that all throughout the years when it comes to wrestling. But do you reckon it needed to be shown so many times?
No, no, not unless you can do an injury angle out of it. Then that's the way you should show it so many times. It was sort of disheartening to see, wasn't it? Every time it was showed, I just think there's no need for it, particularly when you're trying to save time on this pay per view at all
Yeah.
costs, basically.
Pretty much, yeah. If you're making all these
Yeah.
chamber matches a lot shorter, and that you're sort of dragging out a frame more replays of that on, yeah, give another 1 or 2 minutes to your chamber matches. But and there was a match scrapped as well, pretty much. But we'll get onto that very, very shortly because before that, we have got the Raw Women's Championship to talk about. We've got Becky Lynch against Lita. I thought this to this point, this is my match of the night. I really enjoyed these two. I like the way that Lita was more than a worthy challenger against Becky Lynch, hitting some of her big moves as well. But it wasn't just a comeback tour. It really felt legitimately to the people that were there. The 1 or 2 spots where, Lita could have done it. And with Becky's facial expressions as well, that character work did carry over from Raw eventually as we got into the match where she hit her big moves and didn't get the win. I like the way that happened, but in the end, yes, Becky managed to kick out on the moonsault, and then obviously she did hit that sort of manhandle slam. It was sort of typical the way the Rock used to hit some of those rock bottoms where it looked like the Rock was done for, but he just could slide that arm underneath and then hit it. I thought it was great stuff indeed there, and Becky retains, and we now know we've got Bianca Belair versus Becky Lynch at WrestleMania 38, the match that we all expected, but certainly this wasn't as one-sided as perhaps maybe people would have thought.
No, I'm amazed how much offense Lita got. To be fair, credit to Becky for giving her the offense. I thought it was a good match. There were times when you thought would WWE do the unthinkable and Becky Lynch get pinned. There was times I was thinking, God, like there's no chance that sort of Becky's going to lose. But then you see that and you see how close it is. I thought it was a good match. It was great to see Lita back. It proves she can hang with Becky Lynch as well. And at the end, I don't know if that was a goodbye again. Like looking at, she got quite an emotional farewell. It seemed at the end of the match. I don't know if that's going somewhere or not. But for me, is it this double it needs to do? Crucially, we're going to get, as you said, Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair at WrestleMania. Bianca has to win. She has to fix what happened at SummerSlam. Sorry, it has to happen. If she goes into this WrestleMania match, they spent months trying to rebuild the damage that was done. She needs to win. If she loses this match at WrestleMania, I'll be saying, what's the point?
Yeah, no, I would agree. I would agree. This is your time now. You've been building this story, like you say, there for what? It'll be 8 months by that point. Becky has escaped Bianca for so many occasions with DQs and stuff like that. Cheap wins when she got the win. So I mean, now it's time. Now it's time to put all the cards on the table. This is time to. It's not going to be the last match. I don't think. I think Bianca wins, then Becky would get a rematch, probably at WrestleMania Backlash. But I do think that overall, I think that it's definitely the story that needs to be told. Bianca needs to become your Raw Women's Champion. And like you just going to say there a minute ago, Lita sort of giving a bit of a farewell. She was doing, I think, appearances or interviews and stuff all week, saying that currently she's not figured into plans going into WrestleMania. So it is where it could be a bit of a goodbye at the minute. But certainly with a performance like that, if WWE needs to put another match in for WrestleMania, say they want to have a legend versus, I don't know, a Sasha Banks or a returning Bayley or Rhea Ripley. Apparently, Lita is really impressed with Rhea Ripley after this show. And it was even made actually comment on the commentary booth during that show. Would you be down for seeing any of those matches with Lita at WrestleMania?
100%. I think the fact she can still go, her versus Rhea, imagine what that would look like. That would look really, really good in terms of like higher octane energy and stuff like that. I think it'd be a really good match. It was just good to see Lita back, and I think for me it'd be a shame she's going. I know that there was rumors originally of her going to AEW. They said they would use her regularly, which made WWE sort of reach out and get her to do this deal. But I'd like to see her again. Out of all the legends that have kind of come back, she really impressed me. To be fair, like the females.
Yeah. She's done incredibly well, and as Silk goes on to say here, match of the night, great showing by Lita. I think that's very, very well said there indeed, because I think that from start to finish, I would agree that was probably match of the night. But from this point onwards, we didn't get any wrestling for about half an hour. Now, of course, George, I know this is one of your nitpicks with a lot of the shows recently, and I have to agree with them. Thankfully, when you're not watching the show live, you can skip through them. We've had video packages of the likes of Bobby Lashley and Seth Rollins playing throughout the show again. And the thing is, we've had them for the last couple of months, so I can see your face immediately. You're not happy that you've had to watch them again.
I think the trouble with this is when you're cutting matches and you're making matches be rushed, like the TV show's about to go off air, then that's where the trouble is. No one. There was one for Seth Rollins this time as well, like later on the show that went on and on and on, and everyone knows who Seth Rollins is. Like if this is somebody where you're showing a history of a feud, I totally get that because you're showing it for people that don't watch Raw or SmackDown. But I just don't get the point of it really, man. I think it's if you're going to do a show and you're going to give everybody time, then fine. But the fact that you're cutting tag matches and stuff, which is what we're going to talk about next, and you've got these silly video packages, like as you said, like earlier, there was only so many minutes of action. Like I think if you would have gone back and fast forwarded most stuff, I think there was only like the show could have been watched in 90 minutes.
Probably.
And it's just crazy. We watched live, but which was quite a long time. But there you go. I just think it's a shame, really. You don't need to be doing these video packages for people that everyone knows who they are already. I would guess most people do.
Absolutely. Well, actually, another one that comes up as well. And it's good to actually talk about this as well, because actually, I want to put a bit of respect on this video package as well, because it's been very well put together. But we saw it on SmackDown. Obviously, we had the announcement The Undertaker is going to be the head of the Hall of Fame. I think it's a superb video package, but it does go on for a while. It's about 4 or 5 minutes. Was that necessarily needed on this show here? Do you reckon it was a right placement for it? But after we'd already seen it 2 days earlier?
I think yes, I think it was, because ultimately it's a big announcement. It's basically giving Undertaker credit for his work. So I think yes, it's a nice placement. Everybody may not have seen SmackDown, so I totally get that part of it. But that served the purpose. You're paying off the Undertaker. Whereas if it's something with Seth Rollins for however long it was, yes, you're putting Seth Rollins over. Seth Rollins then goes into the match later and he's jobbing like within however long. It's just doesn't really add up to me, to be fair.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you. To be honest, I think this one was a right placeholder, and I think it's a fantastic video package. In fact, people haven't seen a video package, go and do so, because it goes through a lot of the highlights of Taker's career through the different gimmicks. I love the use of music with Metallica and Kid Rock in there. It's absolutely superb. It's a different level. And of course, we've said it for the longest time, Jonesy. It was our prediction. We both said Taker will be the head of the Hall of Fame coming into 2022, especially with WrestleMania being in Texas. It's great to see that that's actually happened. I know Undertaker's one of your favorites of all time as well, so it must be really special for you to go through and now have a bit of nostalgia of going through some of the dead man's best moments.
100%. I think it's a fantastic addition, well overdue. An early prediction, I think Kane will be the one that inducts him. It'll either be Bruce Pritchard as Brother Love, because obviously he debuted with him, or it'll be Kane. I think them two make sense to me early on.
That's a brilliant shout, especially the Bruce Pritchard one, because I didn't think of that one whatsoever, and that's a very, very good shout. I always thought it'd be Vince McMahon himself, because Vince loves the Taker, doesn't he? And it's arguably, as I said many times, it's his greatest creation. So I wouldn't be surprised with the special bond they have, which we saw with the Last Ride series, if it was Vince. But certainly, there's a number of superstars that could be in that role. Arguably, Taker could be in a Hall of Fame all on his own. He's that good. But I'm sure there will be other people that will be announced in amongst there. I mean, I think Michelle McCall could be one that could potentially be given a shout there. I've mentioned perhaps members of the Bone Street crew that have not been inducted, maybe a Savio Vega, maybe you're talking about your Godwins, because you need to get those people in there.
You need to get Rikishi as well, then. Is Rikishi in there already? Or maybe one?
I'm not sure if he is or isn't. I need to go back and check that out.
He's part of the crew, isn't he?
He is a part of the crew. Yeah, there are a number of them that are already in there, like Yokozunas and people like that. So you're not going to get that. People like Mankind and Paul Bear are already in there. So you're not going to get them. Kane's already there. But maybe some people that were some of the great rivals of The Undertaker. Maybe, what about his first WrestleMania main event against Psycho Sid at WrestleMania 13? That could be a shout. Sid's not in the Hall of Fame at this point of going. And maybe people that have inspired The Undertaker that are not in the Hall of Fame yet. Maybe people that he looked up to in the, I don't know what era it would have been, but maybe the 70s or 80s that could get a nod in. There could be people like that could go in the Hall of Fame. It could be a whole dead man themed Hall of Fame. Would that be something you'd like to see?
I love it. I think that's really, really good. I think the continuity of it would be fantastic to see it. As somebody that's always liked The Undertaker, I think that would be phenomenal. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the induction. I think obviously he had his retirement thing at Survivor Series when there was no fans. This will hopefully be the proper payoff to say goodbye.
Yeah, I think so. And that's perfectly said as well, because the Survivor Series, yeah, they did it, but it was not probably the best way. This would be perfect. So I 100% agree with that. I'm just going with them other video packages that we're talking about, the ones with Bobby Lashley and Seth Rollins. The only thing that I still could think of was the whole assemble and disassemble of the chamber that can cause these delays. I agree with that. It could be a potential. I also think toilet breaks. People need to have a toilet break. Being at a pay-per-view recently, I can say that I was very thankful there was a gap where I could go and have a break and get myself a drink, perhaps at the stands, or, you know, people sometimes want a merch. They go, I like that match, I need it, but you can just get that into the show.
You raise a good point. You raise a fantastic point. I totally agree with that, because you've seen it live. But
yeah,
if you're cutting stuff away from the show and rushing stuff because you haven't got enough time, that's where I have the problem more than anything, really, Steve. I'm being honest.
I totally agree with you. And I think on this show, I mean, being now on the sofa watching this time, I was like, I don't need to see this. Maybe they could do something else that would be a bit better filler rather than doing stuff, especially when we've seen that Bobby Lashley one, I believe, was even done on Survivor Series. So I don't think it's the first time they've aired that on pay-per-view. And we've had a number of them.
Just one last comment as well, Steve, while we're at it. So alternatively, they could always build an angle for Raw, couldn't they? Or make a match for Raw or something like that. You could always do that during this time. I know you'd miss it if you went to the toilet. I totally get that part of it. But I don't know why they just don't do that. Like, alternatively.
I totally agree with you, 100%. And last thing, but before we go on to a scrapped match, as we're saying about building up, I think that match has been built for WrestleMania. How do you feel about the Hall of Fame being advertised on Friday night with SmackDown? Yeah, because we've got the WrestleMania SmackDown. I'm guessing they'll bring that logo in if they haven't already. With the Hall of Fame, that's going to be a long night for fans, isn't it?
Yeah, it will be. But then they're going to be excited. Obviously, it's one time a year, WrestleMania. And you're going to get a lot of probably people that don't sort of see the show every week because they're not from America, probably. Maybe you're going to get a lot of the international fans.
That's very true. It's a great point made there. You can't argue with that. I mean, for me, if I was in attendance and was able to go and see that, I still would be pretty excited about it regardless. And like you say, I mean, actually, the thing is as well with the Survivor Series, it was quite a lengthy show, but you didn't feel like it when I was sitting there in the seat. I felt it flew by. So it can be a different thing for people when they're sitting there. Maybe at home, I think, oh, it's a long show and maybe it might burn out after a while. But I didn't feel that way when I was there. Maybe it was adrenaline. I don't quite know, but maybe it's time zones as well, because usually for us, we're watching on a different time zone a lot of the time when we do watch these shows. But let's go on to something we can moan about for a couple of minutes, because, we were supposed to get the Usos versus the Viking Raiders. The Raiders were attacked on the way to the ring by the Usos, and not really brutally. It was just a double suplex on Ivar on top of Eric, and that was enough to call this match off. Enjoy your plane ride home, lads. That was a long journey to not do nothing. Tag team wrestling, does it mean anything?
Probably not. Like, I just think you've flown these guys thousands of miles with everything that's going on with COVID and stuff like that. What is the point? You know what I mean? I just think you look at how Drew McIntyre got taken out by Baron Corbin and Madcat Moss. That was a proper beatdown. This was babyish, so to speak. That's probably not the correct term, but I just thought it served no purpose really. And as you said, this is another reason why they were rushing time, because they didn't have time to do the match. But apparently it was a worked angle. Apparently this was the plan all along not to do the match. But it wouldn't surprise me if you see it on SmackDown in a couple of weeks. I don't know if it'll make it to WrestleMania.
I mean, I prefer. We spoke about this the other day, myself and Silk, on the predictions. We said we'd hope it would actually be a multi-team match rather than just the Usos versus them. Because I don't know, that match just doesn't excite me. Is there a reason that I'm not? Should I be more hyped for this match?
Maybe not the finish. You look at the Viking Raiders equal to the Usos. The Usos are kind of like Roman, at that level where there's nobody close to them. It's not like back in the day we had the Hardy Boys, Dudley Boys, Edge and Christian all at the same level. This is just unless you're going to make teams. I don't really sort of know the tag team division. Perhaps you could get the New Day sort of involved with that. Maybe make that a triple threat, as you said. Maybe, but for me, the Viking Raiders have never been the same since they came up from NXT. Like when in NXT they were so over, and they've continued been trying to repair that really. But I just think they're not equal to the Usos, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. They don't feel like on that level anyway. They may take the titles from the Usos, but they don't feel that level at the moment. They need to. If they're going to do that story to WrestleMania, they need to start making them feel like they could do it. For me personally, this is something that's never going to happen. But the only matches I feel, like you said, the Usos are on that higher level now in tag team wrestling. No one feels like that level. I want to see the Usos versus the Young Bucks. I want to see the Usos versus God. Those are the matches I want to see them involved with. I feel that I see anyone versus the Usos right now, and I don't feel like anyone's on their level.
It's a shame. Like, hopefully, they may build someone up. They've got a lot of good tag teams in NXT they could bring up, though. But that's wishful thinking on my part, probably.
Absolutely. Well, I will say that, though. I did enjoy them when they faced Arcade Bro. I will say that. I did feel that felt on the level. And perhaps the Alpha Academy, they're working their way up.
Alpha Academy,
Gable,
yeah.
They are doing great stuff right now. And I'm sure if Chad was actually watching this right now, he would probably shush me. I wouldn't be surprised. So, So predictions-wise, Usos won, right, lol? I guess so. So.
It wasn't even a match, was it? But they didn't lose. I was just kind of glad that we were going to get to that main event. So I was so excited for the main event.
Absolutely. Well, last comment just before we do. Way to ruin a fun match. Hope we get the Viking Raiders take the titles off the Usos at WrestleMania. So maybe it's the desired effect. I mean, if that's, Super Sunday Day says, I want the Raiders to win. So that maybe is doing the job. Maybe it gets people up behind them. And when they get the titles.
Good if it does. Good on them if it does.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope that I'll be more invested in that storyline by the time we get to Mania. We've got 6 weeks to do so. But let's talk about that main event because, So we had the same method then with 16-minute match. We had 3 superstars in pods. Then we had the 2 that are going to start the match. And then we had the attraction afterwards. So same structure as always. So the first 3 superstars that came out were your WWE champion, Bobby Lashley. We had Riddle. And we had AJ Styles. Those were the ones that were in the first 3 pods. Then we had Austin Theory come out, and I loved the selfie, particularly with Riddle. I thought that was hilarious because Riddle's like, let's
Riddle
just have
thinks
a
it's a good thing.
Yeah, he thinks it's brilliant. He loves it. And then obviously we got Seth Rollins come in, which to be fair, I love Seth Rollins' entrance at the moment. Everyone roaring along. I think that's awesome every single time. And then, of course, we had the attraction that is Brock Lesnar. And of course, Brock Lesnar, intimidating, looking to go face-to-face with Bobby Lashley's pod. As mentioned by Supersonic earlier in the stream, the way he just blanked Riddle, I thought was hilarious. And Riddle's reaction again. Riddle's a character, man. He's hilarious. And then, of course, the same done to AJ Styles, where he just stares into Star Wars. Also was a match I was thinking, I'm looking forward to seeing these 2 go at it in the chamber. The great match at Survivor Series a few years ago. So it did build that sort of stuff up well as we got into the chamber. Now, really, there's not a lot of note really to talk about about this match. But if you don't mind, Jonesy, I'll go through details and we'll talk about everything at the end. So basically, we had Theory and Rollins start the match off. And the only thing of note that happens here is that we get what would be Seth Rollins' buckle bomb. But instead of it going to a buckle on Theory, it went through a pod. And of course, Bobby Lashley was in that pod. We've seen so many times where superstars are thrown through pods and no one's in there. For the first time I think I can ever remember, someone was in the pod and the glass goes straight into Lashley. Lashley hits what looks the back of his head as well to the other end of the pod. He's down. He's out of it. To the point that EMTs are worried and then Pierce is worried. They're all getting in. They're all checking in on Bobby Lashley, and then he's taken out. They deem he's concussed. He can't go through the protocols. He's got to be cleared to be brought back in. He's taken out of this match. We get Riddle, we get AJ Styles into this match as well. The four of them do the mix along, and then we get, of course, what should have been entrant number 5 in this chamber, which was supposed to be Bobby Lashley, but Brock Lesnar went, screw this, I'm not waiting, and completely kicked through the pod to come through, which, let's be fair, looked freaking awesome, by the way. Lashley then came in and pretty much buried your men's world heavyweight title division. Just picked up Seth, eliminated him by hitting an F5. Just picked up AJ, hitting an F5. Just picked up Riddle, as you would expect, with an F5, 1, 2, 3. And we're left with Austin Theory then. And it's 5 minutes left of this match. And I'm not going to lie to you, probably the best 5 minutes I've seen for a while. Probably the most entertaining 5 minutes of the show. If this was a full match, it probably would have been my match of the night because we knew the inevitable that Theory was going to get destroyed. But Brock Lesnar and the way it was just delayed. I mean, Theory trying to hide in the pod for Brock just to kick the pod in.
That was fun.
On him.
That was fun.
That was fun. But arguably the same things what happened to Bobby Lashley earlier in the match, and Theory was, well, not fine to continue. He just lasted a bit longer. Of course, he tried to escape, got to the top of the pod, and what seemed great on paper, maybe not as great in execution. We said RP to Moss earlier on, maybe to Austin Theory's knees. It was F5 off the top of a pod to the bottom of the chamber, which of course he did land on his feet, but still, I thought it was a very creative spot nonetheless. And Brock Lesnar pins, and we get a 1, 2, 3. No one replaced Bobby Lashley, which I thought was a possibility. Was Cody going to come in? I even thought there was a point, was Roman going to come in and be the one to hold both belts going into WrestleMania? And that could have been the angle they could set up further. Again, would have been a detriment to the rest of the men's division, but could have been something a bit different. Let's start and break this down, Jonesy, because I want to get your thoughts on everything here. Let's start with Bobby Lashley here, because it's kind of a weird way. I'm not sure if I'm happy or not with the way that he lost the WWE Championship, because in a way, we've seen it with other sports, with, you know, NFL, with hockey, with certainly being fans of the Premier League. A lot of times yesterday, during the West Ham Newcastle game, people were being checked with bashes of heads to make sure they were okay to continue the game. You know, that's a thing that should be done into sport, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I think so. But then when you look at it legitimately, obviously it has broke since. I think Silk's put in the comments as well, but is ultimately that Bobby was legitimately injured before this match. He's been injured since the Royal Rumble, since he was dropped continually by Brock Lesnar. So they knew for a whole month now that Bobby wasn't able to wrestle. Hence why he didn't have any matches at all on the road to this event. But for me, I just think it's one of those things. Like, I just don't get sort of. I get you have to get him out there, but then I just think, why build it up? Like, you know what I mean? It's one of them things where it just didn't really work. And I think for me, it's a real shame to see Bobby gone. If Bobby is out for 4 months now, he's going to miss potentially WrestleMania, which is a shame. And I just, for me, I just thought it was a weak way to go. Like, I just think it's, they should have just done this. They should have just had the title be vacant and then have somebody else in there. They could have put Randy Orton in that spot. At least it would have been more competitive. And what I would say for the match as well is, I think Austin Theory being in the final 2 was a mistake. Like, it's great to see Austin having that rub, but he did get the low blow, and that was kind of the only offense. I would much rather have seen an AJ or Seth, just so you've got that question mark. Who's actually going to win? The minute Austin Theory was in there with Brock, it was obvious who was winning all day long, which was a shame for the last half of the match.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I mean, the thing is, one of my main problems with this match, like I say, is the fact that all the superstars pretty much got destroyed with Lesnar within seconds of him getting in there. And that really begs the question, like, what happens? Does other wrestlers matter outside of Brock and Roman at this point? Like we said, this storyline has done so much to this point, but what about these other superstars now? You're going to build matches up for WrestleMania. Like, let's say we get AJ Styles versus Edge. Okay,
we are getting that. We are going to get that match.
Is it simply going to be that AJ's out there calling, and it's going to be seen as the dream match? Edge comes out, and they both just point at the sign, because all of a sudden, AJ's didn't beat Priest for the United States title. He gets destroyed in seconds by Brock. Does this match feel as dream match as it should do?
You have to suspend your disbelief to a certain point. We know in ring what it's going to be like. We know it's going to be superb, but they're just at different levels. Both of them are kind of, Edge is kind of up here, AJ's here, but for me, I just think, you have to suspend your disbelief. The problem is the whole of the men's main event scene is kind of put secondary for for however many months now due to Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. But for me, I just think it's one of the things. I think the one thing I would say is I like to see the Elimination Chamber get smashed up. That was the only time throughout the whole sort of event really that the Chambers actually came into play in terms of actually them being smashed as a weapon. The Chamber wasn't really used as a weapon, I felt, and this was another one where I like the bump off the top, the F5, that was pretty cool. But none of it was kind of memorable. You're looking like this, you're thinking Bobby's been taken out. What I would say the most important thing is, where was Roman Reigns in this? This is a Roman Reigns Brock Lesnar feud. Brock needs to be angry. Brock was a guy that's been screwed, and we've never really kind of got that sort of payoff, if that makes sense. I think for me that you wouldn't know that Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar is going to be the feud, besides them advertising it every 5 minutes.
That's the thing. They are advertising. I mean, the thing is, I said this on the build was that does Roman want Brock to have that momentum, or does he want to have the idea of, well, I could be champion of both shows? And I guess that coming out of this show, Roman felt, well, I don't need to get involved. I can be champion of both shows, so I'm going to let Brock go and do what Brock does.
Yeah, I think maybe. I think it's okay. I'll just be glad when this Roman and Brock thing's done, so we can actually get other people getting built up potentially.
That's the thing. I mean, you assume after WrestleMania, I mean, we assume Brock then will probably take a break till SummerSlam or something like that. He probably won't be around as much after this. But, I mean, I even thought towards the end of the show that after Brock had won over Austin Theory, that someone else was going to come out, whether it was Lashley that was going to come back. I was not aware of that injury, for example, especially when watching.
No, I wasn't either. No.
So I thought maybe you might get the traditional, like, oh, he's come back and he's a bit hurt, like he's going to try and defend his title still. Did you think someone could have? And I mean, everyone's been thinking as well, Cody Rhodes. Yeah. Was there a chance he could have come in this spot, or would it have worked for you had he have?
I actually think you've got to save Cody Rhodes to the day after WrestleMania. Like, you can't be having Cody Rhodes be watered down by the time we get to after WrestleMania. You've got to save that, because when all the big hitters like Stone Cold Steve Austin and the others are all gone after WrestleMania, you need something for the fans to be excited for. But I agree. I was looking for somebody to come out, whether it be Big E or anybody, just to kind of come out, like just to try and sort of do that thing. But for me, I think it's just kind of does what it needs to do. It's just a way to kind of end the pay-per-view. And they were rushing, as you said, like this is another match where we've been rushing through. They want to get the pay-per-view out. It's almost like they had a bedtime. They have to go to bed at a certain time. And they were just like, I better eat my dinner really quickly just to get to bed. It was almost kind of like that. They were just rushing through. Nothing really sunk in, really, I'd say.
They need to get back to the airport. That's what it was, wasn't it? They, those planes take off without them otherwise. But yeah, I mean, it's going through some of the comments here just very quickly. I thought the match was still good, and I thought that nothing was botched or anything like that. No. It was still a decent match. Like you say, I think the rushness hurt it, and I think certain superstars come out, particularly Seth Rollins being one of them. Seth Rollins a month ago at the Rumble was someone that you could have turned around and said he could have legitimately beaten Roman Reigns. We were discussing the idea that Roman was vulnerable. He was squashed in seconds, but maybe that plays into the storyline. I'm sorry, we'll go to this comment in a second, but that maybe plays into the storyline because, well, Roman smashed Goldberg, but Brock has smashed Seth. So doesn't that still put them on the equal counterpart?
I actually think if they're being clever, you'll get Seth and Bobby. I think Bobby should blame Seth down the line and say, you cost me the match. You injured me. I think that's the way you get them to a match down the line. But for me, this match would have been so much better if you'd have had Randy Orton in there instead of Brock. Right, and this could have been the start of Randy Orton versus Riddle. I think this could have been a perfect place to really get that feud started. But wishful thinking on my part, I really don't like Brock Lesnar and Roman both having the belts. It really kind of puts me off a bit, unfortunately.
Yeah, I can understand that. I can totally understand that. I mean, the thing is, I think we're going to get Randy Orton and Riddle breakup happen. I believe it's not this week on Raw, which will be tomorrow. I think it's going to be the following week. I believe that's when they get their tag title opportunity. And I think particularly if Randy takes the fall again, he's going to be frustrated then, think that, well, hang on, something's not right. Maybe Riddle's not in the right place at the right time. And I think that's when Randy's going to snap on Riddle, and that's when they're going to build that going into WrestleMania. But let's go
crazy. Sorry, after you. No, I was going to say,
you go first.
All I was going to say is, call me crazy. I would love to see Riddle be the one that turns heel. Just no one will see it coming.
I would agree. I agree, because it would be different. Everyone, it's the plain Randy Orton goes heel again. So I totally agree with it. It would be something different to see. Because as well, Randy's the one that's been screwing up when Randy has said, well, Riddle, you need to have your eyes on the prize. Riddle didn't lose the tag titles. And Riddle was one in the chamber. So he's been able to balance everything going on. But still, the Brock break would have been more impressive had they not shown the replay that showed that it was already broken before. good point made there, really, from Silk there. He also goes and say RIP to Austin's knees, and he also thought that it gave him the Austin Fury Brock spot, gave him John Connor Terminator vibes. He thought it was excellent. And we've got this other comment here saying that, do you think that they've used too many things to build this Mania match? They have used the Rumble result, Chamber match to build, and multiple matches instead of multiple matches for Mania. I think we both agree with that.
Yeah, it's a really sensible analysis, really. I think that's definitely the point. But this Mania card's going to be stacked, isn't it? Either way, like I think 2 whole nights. This is one match. I've got a question for you, Steve. Do we see Brock or Roman defending the belt on night 1 potentially?
Well, this was something I thought about before. Now, a question I was going to ask you actually, because now I know that Bobby's injured. I don't think so, but it was a question I thought maybe they may do a night 1, then a night 2, very Wrestle Kingdom-esque. But I can't see that happening now. Can you?
No, the trouble you have is whoever wins, unless it's going to be sort of, I can't imagine Brock dropping the belt on night 1 and then going against Roman. I just can't kind of see that. I think whoever's in night 1 has got no chance. It kind of makes it a pointless match, unfortunately. Really.
Other question, just before we get our round up of our full results of what we think of the Chamber here. Say we assume at this point Roman's winning both belts at WrestleMania, will be on Raw and SmackDown. So when to a point is it right then for Roman to lose a championship? Especially, surely it should be the Universal Championship first, because that's been the long reign, and it would look kind of weird if he was then just lose to someone on Raw. It just makes it look that the Raw's a stronger brand than SmackDown. How do you manage that with Roman as holding both belts? How long should he hold them?
I don't see Roman dropping the belts. I did hear today on the date sheets, that's Billy Bassey's podcast, check it out. I did hear that apparently the plan is that they want The Rock to come back, and it'll be Rock and Roman next year at WrestleMania, and they want The Rock to have one of the belts, supposedly. But for me, I think Roman's not losing the belt. I can't see anybody on the roster beating Roman at the moment. No one's going to get near, unless you're putting Cody Rhodes in at the top, and then he's going to beat him. But for me, the only way Roman Reigns is going to win this is going to drop the belt is if he gets screwed. But for me, him having 2 belts, you're booking yourself into a corner. This whole 2 belts thing is a corner for me.
Absolutely. Even Money in the Bank feels like, well, is that right for someone to get the fluke over Roman at this point? It would destroy all those 100 days.
They've done a fantastic job of building Roman up. Roman is that good. I'll give him that. Roman is that good, but he's almost too good, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's good to be too good. You just need other superstars on the level, and not just Brock Lesnar. Even though Brock is awesome, let's be fair. Brock was amazing. Awesome. Everything he did in that match was fantastic.
Can I just put out there for you, Steve? Say, for example, everything they've done with Brock Lesnar. God forbid that Brock Lesnar gets injured on the road up to WrestleMania.
God,
where are you? You know what I mean? You're kind of you're kind of down a river with no paddle to get back, because ultimately you've not got anybody else built up. But I think for me, I'm a massive fan of this match. Looking forward to seeing it. But please start building up other people, so we've got sort of something to be excited for other than this match.
Absolutely. Well, one thing I'm going to plan to do to at least record it today and put out to at least today, later tonight or tomorrow, is a video on what WWE needs to do between now and WrestleMania.
Looking forward to it. That'll be really good.
5 or 6 points of what I think they need to do. And we're not going to try and make it too long of a video, because I know sometimes, I want to make it a nice, easy watch for everyone. But I'm going to try and record that today and try and get that out for people either later today or tomorrow on the channel. So that's something that people can look out for. But that's pretty much Elimination Chamber. So what we need to do now is go with what our match of the night was, and also then give our score rating out of 10 for this show.
I think the match of the night for me is Drew McIntyre, Madcat Moss. I think it was really, really good. If you ignore the horrible bump, I thought it was a really, really good match. I really kind of enjoyed it. Show, I'm going to go 5 out of 10. I think it was predictable. Not watching it was just a filler, really, for me. It felt like another episode of Raw or SmackDown, in all honesty.
That's fair enough there. Well, I mean, Drew Madcat was a good match. I think 5 out of 10 is a fair score. I mean, like you say, that it could have been a missable show. If you just looked at the results today, like you said, it's what people thought. It was kind of as what people expected. So for me to give my score out of 10, I think I've lost Jonesy. Are you there with us?
I'm coming back. Am I back now?
You are back now, indeed. We've got all the detail of what you needed from it anyway. We've got the match of the night for you was Drew and Madcap, and we got it was a 5 out of 10 as well. And to give my score for you, I'm just going to say quickly, I think it was a 6 out of 10. I think it was middle of the road pay-per-view. I did enjoy it. I liked the length of the show, but there was not enough wrestling for that length of the show still. I think even though it was a quick watch, I think this show could have been 2.5 hours and you wouldn't have felt too bad. Or it could have been the same length and the chamber matches could have been longer. I think the chamber matches where this show goes down a bit, but there was no botches, there was no problem. Like you say, it was plain sailing, middle of the road, typical WWE, that standard pay-per-view before WrestleMania. We kind of knew where the direction was going already. But George, anything you'd like to add?
I think the last thing I'd like to say is, if you look at what they've done with kind of Brock Lesnar, so not only have they given away the Royal Rumble winner, the Men's Royal Rumble winner, and the title to Brock Lesnar, they've given so much as one wrestler that's already in a title match. It's just a bit disappointing, really, to me. That's the last thing I'm going to say. I think we've got no more pay-per-views now to WrestleMania, but they've got a good amount of time to really build up this card. I still think it's going to be a good show. I'm still looking forward to kind of seeing it, but I just think it's a lot in one basket.
And the thing is, they've got to work hard on this road to WrestleMania now. That's the thing. They've got 6 weeks to do it. Can they do it? That's the big question. I think they will do it. I think, like you said, look, Edge and AJ Styles is still a great match. We're still going to be really excited to see it. There's not going to be a problem with that. Seth Rollins, whoever he takes on the WrestleMania, could be excited to see. Maybe it's him and KO. If we get KO and Steve Austin, for example, that stuff, it's going to be pretty darn exciting to see. If Cody does come in, lots of things, lots of talking points in the wrestling community right now, what they could do with WrestleMania. It looks like they're going for attraction right now. Roman and Brock is attraction. Ronda and Charlotte is attraction. Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair.
Bianca will be good.
I mean, they're two winners
They're
of
huge matches.
WrestleMania events.
A lot of them are huge matches. I just think they'd be that much better if they had real heat behind them. Like back in the days where you had these feuds where, I'm not saying every single match was stellar or blockbuster, but you'd have a story behind them. That's just me being a historian of wrestling, really.
No, absolutely. I think they will get there. I mean, the thing is, I said, with Bianca and Becky, they are two women's main events of WrestleMania. They're the two winners, so they could really play that into the story, and I really, really hope they do. But I mean, pretty much that's mostly all we got to speak about on this. Is there any final points you want to make just before we close off?
No. Thank you for having me on your channel. It's been a great to review. I really enjoyed coming on, and yeah, great to hear your opinion, obviously, of the show, Steve. Thanks for having me on again. It's been great.
It's been great to have you on. And like I said to everyone that's not subscribed to Jonesy Chats Wrestling already, go and do so on YouTube. He's got some great content on there, some historian content as well. It's definitely worth going and checking out. Definitely always great to hear your opinions. And George, I thank you for taking time to come on this channel.
No worries, mate.
Just to say, for those that are watching on this channel, it's really important if you can hit a like for us as well. Hit the subscribe button if it's your first time watching. Leave a comment as well with your thoughts in the comment section of the Elimination Chamber. The things we've not discussed that we should have done. Do you agree or disagree with any of our opinions? Do let us know in the comments below right now. And also, like I said, we're on the road to WrestleMania. Big things coming on the channel for us right now, including what will be the SCW Rewind going into WrestleMania for the month of March. What you can do is go on the community tab right now and vote on the poll. There are 4 WrestleManias available for you: WrestleMania 8, WrestleMania 14, 21, and 28. Pick your favorite and see which one will be the rewind for WrestleMania in the month of March. We'll have that poll up for about another week or so. In fact, to the start of March, probably about 10 days or so we've got for you to vote on that. So make sure you go and do so, and we'll see if your favorite is voted as the WrestleMania for SCW Rewind. But that's all from us anyway. Thank you for watching. Have yourselves a good one. Hope you enjoyed Elimination Chamber. Hope you enjoyed this live stream. Like I say, hit the like, share, subscribe. Have yourselves a great day, and we will see you next time. All the best. Take care, and thank you for watching.
Bye, guys.